morning rain fell in soft, rhythmic sheets drumming against the cracked sidewalks of Maple Street. The city had just begun to stir. Cars growled to life, shopkeepers lifted shutters with weary groans, and puddles mirrored the dull gray sky. In the middle of it all, a small figure trudged forward, clutching a basket of wilted daisies as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Lily Thompson's sneakers squelched with every step, water seeping through holes worn at the toes. Her thin coat hung loosely on her shoulders, 2 sizes too big and patched with mismatched fabric. She shivered, but she didn't slow down. Stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering. The children's home, the nights she'd cried herself to sleep, and the morning she'd walked away when she realized no one was coming back for her. Flowers. Fresh flowers. Her voice was small, nearly drowned by the hiss of tires and the hiss of rain on pavement. "Pretty flowers for your sweetheart." No one answered. Men in suits hurried past, heads down beneath umbrellas. Women with coffee cups clutched their bags closer. A bus roared by, splashing cold water against her ankles. Lily's stomach clenched painfully, but she ignored it. She had sold 1 bouquet yesterday, just enough for a stale donut. If she sold 3 today, maybe she could buy something warm. Bread, soup if she was lucky. She tightened her grip on the basket, looking up at the passing faces with faint hope. Everyone seemed so busy, their eyes fixed on their phones or the next train. Lily wondered, as she always did, what it must feel like to have someone waiting for you at home. Someone who'd ask if you'd eaten, someone who'd care. The rain began to fall harder, forcing her to take shelter beneath the awning of an old cafe. From there she watched the world blur, a river of colorless motion. Then a sound broke through the rhythm of the rain. It was faint, fragile, a whimper. Lily's head snapped toward the park across the street. It was nearly empty, too early for joggers, too wet for children. The whimper came again, soft and trembling, carried by the wind. She hesitated. It could have been a stray dog, or maybe... Her heart tugged her forward before her mind could stop her. She darted across the street, clutching her daisies to her chest as raindrops stung her cheeks. The park smelled of wet grass and earth. Puddles rippled beneath her shoes as she searched, listening. The sound came again, closer this time. Behind the large oak tree near the fountain, Lily froze. There, half hidden by the tree's thick roots, sat an elegant wicker basket covered with a cream-colored blanket that looked much too fine to be abandoned. For a long moment she didn't move. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then she stepped closer, slowly, carefully. Her heart hammered so loudly she thought it might drown out the soft whimpers beneath the blanket. When she lifted the corner of the fabric, the breath caught in her throat. 3 tiny faces blinked up at her. Pink cheeks, soft curls, perfect little mouths forming silent cries. 3, not 1, but 3. Each wearing a delicate blue cap, each with eyes the color of summer sky. "Oh my goodness," she whispered, voice trembling. "Where's your mama?" The babies squirmed, one letting out a sharp cry that made Lily flinch. Panic rose in her chest. She looked around. Surely someone must be nearby, searching, calling their names. But the park was silent, the streets beyond still gray and indifferent. She noticed then the piece of folded paper tucked under the blanket. The letters blurred as she tried to read. She only recognized a few words: safe, love, and something that looked like never. The rest might as well have been another language. Her lip quivered. "You poor things," she murmured, touching one baby's tiny hand. His fingers wrapped around hers with surprising strength, and something inside her broke open. A warmth she hadn't felt in years. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. The rain eased into mist, but no one came. Lily's arms ached from holding the edge of the basket, yet she couldn't bring herself to leave. The baby's cries grew louder, sharper, hungry cries. Real desperate cries. Her mind raced. She could tell the police. But what if they took the babies away, just like they'd taken her once? What if they were sent somewhere cold and lonely, where no one sang them to sleep or held them when they cried? She bit her lip hard enough to taste blood. "I won't let that happen," she whispered fiercely. "I promise." Gathering all her strength, she wrapped the blanket tightly around the basket and lifted it with trembling arms. It was heavier than she expected, but she didn't stop. As she disappeared down the rain-soaked path toward the old warehouse she called home, a figure stepped from the shadows of the trees. A tall woman in a dark coat, her lips curling into a smile. "Found you," she murmured. and beneath the soft patter of the dying rain the hunt began. The orphan mother. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained heavy and bruised, like a wound that refused to heal. The streets shimmered beneath the street lamps, the puddles catching faint glimmers of yellow light. Lily's thin arms ached as she carried the heavy wicker basket through the alleys, her breath fogging the air in weak, trembling bursts. Every few steps she had to stop, adjust her grip, and whisper softly to the babies inside. "Shh, it's all right, my darlings," she murmured. "We're almost home." She didn't know why she said home. The word didn't mean what it used to. Home was supposed to be safe, warm, filled with laughter and light. Her home was an abandoned warehouse with cracked windows, graffiti on the walls, and rats that scurried through the shadows. But tonight it would have to be a cradle. By the time she reached the warehouse, her legs trembled so badly she nearly collapsed. The rusted metal door screeched in protest as she pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled of dust, rain, and oil. In one corner, she had built her little world, a nest made of old blankets, cardboard, and a single torn mattress she'd rescued from a dumpster. She placed the basket carefully in the warmest spot she could find, near the small pile of rags she used as a pillow. The babies stirred, their cries fading into small whimpers. Lily knelt beside them, brushing her wet hair from her face. "It's not much," she said softly, "but it's ours." The babies looked up with eyes that reflected the faint light of the moon filtering through the broken glass panes above. Their innocence struck her like a blade. She didn't know who they belonged to, but she knew what it meant to be unwanted, and she would die before she let that happen to them. She studied their faces. 3 tiny boys, identical and yet so different already. The one who cried the loudest, she named James. The quiet observer, who blinked up at her with calm curiosity, she called Jacob. And the one who grabbed her finger with a fierce grip, refusing to let go, became Joshua. Strong names, she whispered proudly. Strong boys. Her stomach growled again, but she ignored it. The baby's hunger mattered more. She counted her money. 4 crumpled dollar bills and a handful of coins. 4.37. Not nearly enough for formula and bottles, but it would have to do. She looked at them one last time before stepping out again. "I'll be quick," she promised, pulling her torn coat around her small body. "Don't cry, please." The streets were darker now, quieter. Most of the shops had closed, except for one, Chen's Market, its flickering neon sign buzzing like a trapped fly. The warmth hit her face as she entered. The store smelled like detergent and instant noodles. Mrs. Chen, the elderly owner, looked up from behind the counter, her wrinkled face softening. "Lily, you're out late again, child. You should be home." Lily hesitated. Her heart hammered as she placed 3 small bottles and a box of baby formula on the counter. "These for your mama?" Mrs. Chen asked kindly. Lily's throat tightened. "Yes, ma'am," she lied. Mrs. Chen's eyes searched her face for a long moment. "You be careful out there, little one," she said finally. "The streets are no place for a girl alone." Lily nodded and hurried out, the bag clutched tightly in her hands. She didn't see the dark car parked across the street. She didn't see the figure inside it, a woman with cold eyes and a cruel smile watching her every step. "Interesting," the woman murmured, her gloved fingers tapping against the steering wheel. "So the little stray has them." She lifted a phone to her ear. "Yes," she said. "She's alive. And she's got all 3. Back in the warehouse, Lily fumbled with the bottles, her hands shaking. She warmed the water from the rusted tap and carefully mixed the formula. The babies cried, loud, desperate cries that echoed through the empty building. She worked fast, feeding them one by one, humming softly to calm them. James drank greedily, Jacob smiled sleepily, and Joshua kept his tiny fist wrapped around her thumb the whole time. When the last one had fallen asleep, Lily sat back and watched them with tearful eyes. "I'll take care of you," she whispered. "No matter what." Outside, the woman's car rolled slowly past the warehouse, its headlights off. Her voice was calm but chilling as she spoke again into the phone. "She's not to be touched," she said. "Not yet. Let her think they're safe." Then she smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. "The billionaire will pay more when he realizes who saved them." And as the city lights flickered in the distance, Lily slept for the first time in days, unaware that her act of love had placed her at the center of a dangerous game. Unaware that powerful eyes were watching. unaware that fate had just begun to weave her name into the life of Marcus Sterling, the man who would soon give everything to find his sons, and the little girl who had unknowingly become their guardian angel. The billionaire's desperation. The sun had not risen in 3 days, or at least it felt that way to Marcus Sterling. The curtains in his penthouse remained drawn, muting the skyline of the city that had once been his kingdom. Once he had looked down from his 42nd floor office and seen triumph. Now every blinking light and every moving car mocked him. Somewhere down there, hidden in the endless maze of streets and rain-soaked alleys, his sons were missing. He hadn't slept since that morning. His once polished shoes stood discarded by the window, and his crisp suit hung wrinkled and unbuttoned. A faint smell of stale coffee and anxiety filled the air. The television murmured quietly in the background, repeating the same story he could not bear to hear again. Billionaire Marcus Sterling offers a $10 million reward for information leading to the return of his 3 missing sons. He muted it. He didn't need the world's sympathy. He needed his children. A knock came at the door. Amanda, his assistant of 6 years, entered cautiously, carrying a folder and a look that mixed exhaustion with pity. "Sir, the FBI team is waiting in the conference room," she said softly. "Agent Morrison said there's been an update." Marcus didn't answer right away. He stood at the window, his reflection a stranger, disheveled hair, unshaven jaw, hollow eyes. The world saw a billionaire. The mirror showed a broken father. "Tell me," he said at last, his voice low, rough. "Do they have them?" Amanda hesitated. "Not yet, but they've traced a vehicle matching the description of the one used in the kidnapping. It was abandoned near where?" His tone cut like glass. "Maple Street Park." For a moment, the room seemed to tilt. Maple Street. That was less than 15 blocks from Sterling Tower. He could almost see it from his office. The park, the fountain, the oak trees where he had once taken the boys for their first walk after Emily's funeral. The irony was cruel. "Get the car," he said abruptly, striding toward the door. "Sir, the FBI." "Get the car." Downstairs, the city pulsed with indifference. The chauffeur drove in silence while Marcus's fists clenched in his lap. The sound of the rain against the glass grew louder, like the world itself was reminding him how small even the richest man could be against fate. At the park, police tape still fluttered in the wind. Agents moved about quietly, collecting evidence. A torn blanket, footprints, a pacifier. Marcus stepped past them, ignoring the warnings and cameras. His shoes sank into the wet grass. His hands shook. He knelt near the old oak tree. The fountain gurgled softly beside him, its water tinted with rain and fallen leaves. He closed his eyes and let his fingers press into the damp earth. "James, Jacob, Joshua," he whispered their names like a prayer. "Daddy's here." When he opened his eyes, something in them had changed. The desperate grief sharpened into something else. Determination, fury, love sharpened into a blade. Agent Morrison appeared beside him. "Mr. Sterling, we believe this was planned," he said quietly. "Someone close to your family?" Possibly who?" Marcus turned sharply. The agent hesitated, then handed him a tablet. A surveillance photo filled the screen. A black SUV, tinted windows, and a woman stepping out wearing a dark trench coat, and a smile that chilled the blood. "Elena Cross," the agent said. "Your late wife's cousin." The world seemed to go silent. Marcus's pulse thundered in his ears. Elena, the woman who had stood by Emily's coffin and whispered, "You'll never understand what it means to lose everything." He remembered the way her eyes had lingered too long on the twins, her envy veiled behind a polite smile. And suddenly it all made sense, the betrayal, the greed, the silence. "Find her," Marcus said. His voice was no longer broken. It was ice. "I don't care what it takes. Bring her to me." As he spoke, Elena sat inside a dimly lit apartment across town watching the news. The headlines flashed with Marcus's face and his anguish broadcast for all to see. She smirked. "10 million, she murmured, swirling wine in her glass. "You'll pay far more than that, Marcus." "Much more." Her gaze shifted to the photograph beside her, a grainy image of Lily walking down the street soaked in rain, carrying the basket. "And the little flower girl?" Elena's lips curved. "You're my insurance policy." Back in the park, Marcus's phone buzzed with another call from the FBI, but he barely heard it. He looked up at the city, vast, merciless, full of secrets. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about money or power or shareholders. He was thinking about 3 tiny hearts that needed him, and somewhere a little girl with nothing had risked everything to keep them alive. He didn't know her name yet, but fate was already pulling them together. 2 lost souls orbiting the same tragedy, destined to collide. Above them, thunder rolled across the gray sky, echoing like a warning. The storm was only just beginning. The girl and her promise, the city slept beneath a bruised sky. But the warehouse never knew rest. A soft symphony of sound filled the cracked concrete room. The steady drip of water from the ceiling, the faint whistle of wind through broken glass, and the gentle rhythm of 3 baby boys breathing in unison. Lily sat beside them, cross-legged on the floor, her small frame illuminated by the flickering flame of a candle she'd found in the trash a few nights before. The light danced across the babies' faces, making them look like angels carved from starlight. Her voice, fragile yet steady, filled the silence. "Once upon a time," she whispered, "there was a girl who lived all alone with nothing but a basket of wilted flowers and a dream that someone would love her." Her throat tightened as she spoke. The story wasn't for them, it was for her. But the babies cooed softly as if they understood, as if they were listening not to her words but to the hope behind them. She smiled and brushed a tear from her cheek. The warehouse was cold, but the warmth of their tiny bodies made it bearable. She had wrapped them in every scrap of fabric she could find, her coat, her blanket, and even the tattered scarf she used to wear when begging outside the train station. It wasn't much, but it was love stitched together by courage. "James, you're my brave one," she whispered, touching the eldest boy's hand. "Jacob, you're my little thinker. And Joshua," she laughed softly as he grabbed her finger again, that stubborn grip never failing, "you're my fighter." They had been with her for only 3 days, yet it already felt like forever. She couldn't imagine the warehouse without their cries or their laughter. Her arms ached when they weren't in them. Her soul ached when they cried. But their hunger, that was what haunted her. The formula she'd bought from Mrs. Chen was almost gone, and she had no money left. Every night she prayed she'd sell enough wilted daisies to buy more, but the rain had washed away her luck. Still, she never let them see her fear. She sang instead, the same lullaby she barely remembered from her earliest days. "Hush, little darlings," she hummed, her voice quivering. "The stars will keep watch when the world grows dark." Outside, the wind howled through the alleyways, carrying the city's distant chaos. Sirens, arguments, laughter, life. None of it reached the warehouse. None of it belonged to her. But someone was listening. From across the street, hidden in the blackness of a parked sedan, a man in a leather jacket adjusted his binoculars. Through the cracked window pane, he could see Lily, the small, frail girl rocking the triplets in her lap, singing to them as though they were her own. He spoke quietly into the radio on his shoulder. "Target confirmed. The girl has the infants. Orders?" The voice on the other end came sharp and cold. "Do not approach, not yet. We wait for Elena's word." The man exhaled slowly, eyes narrowing. "Understood." Inside, Lily stirred as if she sensed something. She glanced toward the window, heart thudding. The candle flickered violently, the shadows in the room stretching tall and long, almost alive. She froze, clutching Joshua tighter. "Just the wind," she whispered to herself. Just the wind, but it wasn't. The next morning dawned with a pale, sickly light. Lily woke to the sound of soft coughing. Jacob. His cheeks were flushed and his little forehead was warm to the touch. Panic surged through her. "Oh no, baby," she murmured, pressing his tiny hand to her cheek. "You're sick, aren't you?" Her heart raced. She knew she had to find help, real help. But that meant leaving the warehouse, leaving James and Joshua alone even for a little while. The thought made her stomach twist. The last time she had been left alone, no one had come back. But Jacob's breathing grew weaker. She didn't have a choice. She wrapped all 3 boys in the thickest blankets she had, kissed James and Joshua on their foreheads, and whispered, "You be good boys. I'll be right back." Then she ran. The streets were already alive with the noise of morning traffic. Her shoes slapped against the pavement as she sprinted toward Chen's Market, her breath coming in short gasps. The cold bit at her fingers, but she barely felt it. Mrs. Chen looked up from restocking shelves, startled. "Lily, what happened?" "Please," Lily panted, clutching the counter. One of the babies, he's sick. He's burning up. Mrs. Chen's eyes widened. Babies? Lily froze. The lie she had woven days ago began to unravel. She looked down, trembling. Please, I just need something for the fever. Please, Mrs. Chen, he's so small. The woman's expression softened. She reached beneath the counter and handed Lily a small bottle of children's medicine. Take it, she said quietly. Go and keep those babies safe, little one. Lily blinked back tears, whispering, thank you, before running back into the rain. She didn't see the black car parked 2 blocks away. Didn't see the man inside lift his phone and say, she's moving. You want us to intercept? Elena's voice came through, smooth and venomous. No, she said. Not yet. Let her think she's winning. When the billionaire finds her, I'll be waiting. As Lily disappeared into the distance, clutching the medicine to her chest, the clouds thickened once more, dark, heavy, unforgiving, and somewhere far above the city. In a penthouse of glass and silence, Marcus Sterling watched the same storm roll in. He didn't know that the girl he was praying to find was the same one running barefoot through the rain, protecting the sons he thought were lost forever. The threads of destiny were tightening. And soon all of them, the orphan, the billionaire, and the monster in the shadows, would collide. The trap, the rain returned that night like a storm with a grudge. Sheets of water hammered the rooftops, slashing against the rusted sides of the warehouse Lily called home. The sound was deafening, a constant roar that drowned even the cries of the babies. Lily was on the floor, rocking Jacob in her arms as his fever burned hotter. Her tiny hands shook as she pressed the damp rag against his forehead. Please get better, she whispered, voice cracking. Please. Her other 2 babies, James and Joshua, slept fitfully beside her, wrapped in every blanket she owned. The candle she'd been using had melted to a stub, its flame weak and trembling. The darkness beyond its reach pressed in like something alive. Lily's stomach growled, but she ignored it. She had fed the babies with the last of the formula hours ago. There wasn't a crumb left for herself. Every muscle in her body screamed for rest, but she wouldn't sleep. Not until Jacob's breathing slowed to something soft and steady again. And finally it did. A weak sigh left his lips. His little body relaxed. Lily exhaled shakily and brushed a strand of hair from his cheek. She looked at all 3 of them, her boys. No, they weren't her boys, not really, but in her heart, they were everything she had, everything that mattered. The warehouse groaned as thunder rolled across the city. She closed her eyes, humming the same lullaby she always sang. But tonight, something in the air felt different. A weight, a stillness, a warning. Outside, beneath the cover of night, a black SUV idled across the street. Rain streamed down its windshield, blurring the face of the man behind the wheel. His jaw was clenched, his eyes locked on the faint, flickering light coming from one of the warehouse's cracked windows. He spoke into his headset. Target confirmed. Girls inside, all 3 infants visible. A pause. Then a cold voice responded. Don't move yet, Elena said from the other end. Wait for my signal. I want to see the look on Sterling's face when he realizes who's been protecting them. Her laugh was quiet, elegant, cruel, dripping with satisfaction. Back inside, Lily jolted upright. A sound and faint almost lost under the rain. Metal scraping against metal. Her breath hitched. She turned toward the warehouse door. Silence. Then another scrape. Someone was outside. Her pulse exploded in her ears. She jumped to her feet, heart pounding so loud she thought it might wake the babies. Hello? She called out, her voice trembling. Nothing. Only the steady hiss of rain. Then came a knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Lily froze. Her entire body screamed run, but her feet refused to move. She turned, eyes darting toward the babies. The basket, the exit. Her mind raced. Where could she go? What could she do? The door rattled violently, then went still, and then a whisper, Lily. The voice was low, calm, familiar, though she couldn't imagine from where. She backed away slowly, clutching the nearest object she could find, a broken metal pipe. The doorknob turned. Once, twice, and then it stopped. The silence stretched long enough for her to start shaking. She backed up further, tripping over a loose board. Her knees scraped the floor. The baby stirred, James beginning to cry. No, shh, it's okay, she whispered, rushing back to them, rocking the basket. Her voice trembled, but she forced it to stay calm. It's just the wind. Just the wind. But deep inside she knew it wasn't the wind. Across the city, Marcus Sterling's private office blazed with light. Maps, photographs, and timelines covered the walls. Red lines connected dozens of dots. Surveillance routes, abandoned buildings, dead ends. "Sir," Agent Morrison said, entering with his laptop open. "We have something." Marcus looked up, his bloodshot eyes flashing with a spark of hope for the first time in days. "What?" "Security footage from a small market in Chinatown. A girl, maybe 7 or 8, came in 3 nights ago. Bought formula and bottles. Paid in coins." Morrison zoomed in on the grainy footage. There she was. Lily. The small girl stood on the screen, drenched from the rain, barely able to see over the counter. Her hair stuck to her face, but her eyes, wide, tired, determined, held something fierce. She was carrying a bag larger than herself. Marcus's heart clenched. "Where was this?" 3 blocks from Maple Street Park, Morrison said. "We tracked her movement after she left the store. She headed toward the old industrial district." Marcus's hands trembled as he pressed them against the desk. "That's not far from here." He didn't need to think. He didn't even grab his coat. "Get the car," he ordered. "Now." Meanwhile, in the warehouse, Lily had finally managed to quiet James's cries. But the candle was nearly gone, and the rain outside had turned into a storm that shook the walls. She curled up beside the babies, clutching the pipe like a sword. Her eyes burned with exhaustion, but she couldn't close them. The sound came again. A door creak. But not from hers. From somewhere deeper inside the building. Her blood ran cold. Someone was inside. She grabbed the basket, struggling to lift it, her small arms shaking under the weight. The babies whimpered softly, sensing her fear. "Shh, my loves," she whispered, breathless. "We're leaving." She stumbled through the shadows, heading for the back exit, the one that led into the alley behind the building. Rain lashed her face as she shoved the door open and stepped out into the freezing night. Lightning split the sky, white light flashing over the alley walls. For one split second she saw movement, a silhouette at the corner. Watching her, she ran, her legs burned. Her heart raced. Her breath came in short, desperate bursts. The babies began to cry again, high, piercing wails that tore through the rain. She turned corner after corner, slipping in puddles, the basket nearly tipping from her grasp. The city blurred around her. Dumpsters, brick walls, flashing lights in the distance. Behind her, footsteps splashed through the puddles. Someone was following her. "Stop," a voice shouted. Lily didn't stop. She ran faster. In another part of the city, Marcus's car tore through the storm, tires hissing across slick asphalt. His phone buzzed. Morrison's voice crackled through the speaker. "Sir, we've got movement." "The girl's been spotted near the old train station." Marcus's pulse surged. "Then that's where I'm going." Rain poured harder. The old train station loomed ahead, its broken windows glowing faintly from lightning flashes. Lily burst through the front doors, panting, soaked to the bone. The place was empty, echoing with the haunting sound of wind howling through forgotten tunnels. She crouched behind an old bench, clutching the basket to her chest. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're okay." But she wasn't. The footsteps entered moments later, closer, louder, then stopped. A shadow stretched across the floor, long, distorted, reaching toward her. Lily squeezed her eyes shut, clutching the basket tighter, and just as she whispered a trembling prayer, a bright light cut through the darkness. "Lily." A man's voice. Deep, desperate, human. Marcus Sterling stood in the doorway, rain cascading from his coat, his eyes wide with disbelief. He saw her, the tiny girl holding the basket. And inside it, the 3 little faces he'd dreamed of every sleepless night. For the first time in weeks, the world stopped spinning. He took one step forward. "Sweetheart," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You found them." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Please," she said softly, "don't take them away from me." And from the shadows behind them, unseen, Elena Cross smiled. The trap had been sprung. Worlds collide. Lightning split the night in 2. For a heartbeat, the old train station was pure white light. Broken benches, dripping iron beams, and in the middle of it all, a tiny girl clutching a wicker basket like a shield. The thunder crashed a moment later, shaking the roof. Marcus Sterling didn't flinch. He was already moving, every nerve alive with disbelief. 3 faces. 3, his sons. And the girl who held them looked so small he could barely comprehend how she'd kept them alive at all. "Please," Lily whispered, backing up until her shoulders hit the cold wall. Her eyes were huge, wild with exhaustion and fear. "Don't hurt us. They're good babies. I didn't steal them. I found them." Her voice broke on the last word. Marcus stopped 2 steps away. His breath came ragged, chest tight, throat burning with something that was half hope, half terror. "I know," he said softly, the words trembling out of him. "I know, sweetheart." He knelt slowly, palms open as if approaching a frightened bird. The rain from his coat pooled around his shoes. "I've been looking for them," he said. "For so long." Lily blinked, trying to understand. Her mind raced between belief and suspicion. "You mean, you're their father?" The word came out like a prayer. The babies stirred at the sound of his voice. Joshua let out a tiny sigh as though he recognized it. Marcus pressed a shaking hand over his mouth, tears spilling unchecked down his face. For a moment the storm outside disappeared. There was only that tiny sound, his child breathing, proof that the nightmare might finally end. But fate wasn't finished. From the darkness above the platform, a faint metallic click echoed. A door creaked open, then closed. Lily tensed. Her instincts flared like fire. "Someone's here," she whispered. Marcus turned sharply. "Morrison?" He called toward the entrance. No answer. Only rain. Then a figure stepped from the shadows behind them. A woman in a soaked trench coat, hair slicked back, eyes gleaming with cold amusement. "Elena," Marcus breathed, the name tasting like poison. She smiled. "You always did underestimate me, cousin." Lily instinctively pushed the basket behind her, placing herself between the babies and the stranger. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice trembling but fierce. Elena's gaze flicked toward her, curious. "Oh, little flower girl, you've caused quite the commotion," she said. "Do you have any idea what those children are worth?" "Don't you dare talk about them like that," Lily cried. Marcus stepped forward, fury overtaking fear. "It's over, Elena. You won't touch them again, won't I?" Her tone was silk over steel. "You built an empire and left everyone else to starve. You think you deserve to keep everything? Your fortune, your company, your perfect little heirs?" "This isn't about money," Marcus snapped. "This is about family." Elena's smile didn't waver. "Family," she repeated softly, almost laughing. You wouldn't know the meaning of it for a heartbeat. The air between them vibrated with unspoken history. The jealousy, the betrayal, the years of resentment that had festered into something monstrous. Then from outside, sirens wailed. The spell broke. Elena's eyes darted toward the sound, flashing blue lights reflecting off the wet concrete. "Looks like you win this round," she said quietly, her voice dripping with venom. "But this story's far from finished." She turned, disappearing into the rain-soaked darkness just as FBI agents burst through the doors. Lily sank to her knees, shaking, the basket clutched against her chest. Marcus fell beside her, pulling the babies into his arms for the first time. James whimpered once, then smiled, pressing his tiny hand against his father's face. Marcus sobbed. It wasn't loud or broken, just a sound too deep for words. Lily stared at him, her mind reeling. She'd found these babies on a park bench 3 days ago. How the richest man in the country was crying beside her, thanking her, calling her a hero. "You saved them," Marcus said hoarsely. "You saved my whole world." Lily shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I just couldn't leave them. Nobody should ever be alone." Marcus looked at her then. Really looked. The thin girl with tangled hair and eyes too old for her age, soaked and shivering but holding more courage than anyone he'd ever known. "Not anymore," he whispered. "You'll never be alone again." He wrapped one arm around her small shoulders, the other around the basket. For the first time since the nightmare began, warmth crept back into his chest. Outside, the storm began to fade, but in the distance, far beyond the flashing sirens and city lights, Elena crosswalked calmly into the shadows of an alley, rain cascading from her coat. Her phone buzzed. She answered it without breaking stride. "Plan A failed," she said. "Prepare Plan B." Then she smiled, the kind of smile that promised the story was only just beginning. The truth and the promised dawn broke over the city like a sigh after a long night of tears. For the first time in weeks, the sun clawed its way past the storm clouds, pouring gold light over the glass skyline and washing the world clean. In the quiet hum of Sterling Medical Center, the air smelled of antiseptic and rain. Nurses whispered in the hallways. Security guards stood at every door. The chaos of the night before had faded, replaced by the fragile calm that follows disaster. Inside a private room on the top floor, Lily sat on the edge of a white hospital chair, her bare feet swinging just above the tiled floor. Her hair was brushed for the first time in days, though it still curled in messy strands around her face. Her eyes, once guarded, hardened by the streets, were softer now, watching over the 3 sleeping babies in their hospital cribs. Each one of them breathed evenly, cheeks flushed with life. The machines beside them blinked quietly like gentle heartbeats. Marcus stood by the window, his silhouette framed by the morning light. The city stretched below him, his empire, but he barely saw it. All he could see was the reflection of the 4 souls behind him. 3 sons who had come back from the void, and 1 little girl whose courage had saved them. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "You kept them alive," he said, still staring out the window. "When all my money, all my men, all my power couldn't find them, you did." Lily looked up, unsure how to respond. "I just couldn't leave them," she said softly. "I know what that feels like. To be left." Marcus turned to her then, his eyes red but gentle. "And you never should have." He knelt down until they were eye level. "Lily, you're the bravest person I've ever met." Her small shoulders lifted in a hesitant shrug. "I was scared the whole time." "That's what makes it brave," he said, smiling faintly. A knock came at the door. Agent Morrison stepped in, his badge catching the morning light. He looked exhausted but satisfied. "We got her, sir," he said. "Elena Cross is in custody. She was trying to leave the city with fake documents. She's done." Marcus closed his eyes briefly, exhaling the breath he'd been holding for weeks. "Thank you." When Morrison left, the room was quiet again, peaceful, almost sacred. The sound of a baby stirring drew Lily's gaze. She stood and walked over, pressing her hand gently against the side of the crib. Jacob blinked up at her, yawning, and reached a tiny hand toward her hair. Lily smiled. "Morning, sweetheart," she whispered. "You're safe now." Marcus watched her, this fragile child cradling the weight of his world with hands too small for such responsibility. He cleared his throat, emotion thick in his voice. "Lily," he said, "I'd like you to stay here with us. For as long as you want." She froze, eyes wide. "You mean, like family?" Marcus's lips trembled into a smile that was both grateful and broken. "Exactly like family." Lily's lip quivered. "But I'm nobody. I don't belong in a place like this." He shook his head. "You belong anywhere love does." And with that he reached out and pulled her into his arms. For the first time in her short life, Lily felt what she had only ever dreamed about, the warmth of being held, not out of pity or duty, but love. Real, unconditional love. 3 weeks later, the Sterling estate buzzed with quiet life again. The gates that had once guarded loneliness now opened to laughter. The air smelled of spring, magnolias and morning dew. Lily stood barefoot in the garden wearing a pale blue dress that the housekeeper had sewn for her. The babies cooed from a blanket on the grass as she made daisy crowns for each of them. Marcus watched from the balcony above, his heart full. He'd built empires, won awards, and conquered markets, but nothing compared to this sight. The little girl who had taught him that love was stronger than wealth, sitting under the sun surrounded by life. Amanda approached quietly. "Sir," she said, handing him an envelope. "These were the adoption papers you requested." He took them carefully. His eyes lingered on the name at the top, Lily Thompson Sterling. But even as the moment glowed with peace, the story wasn't quite finished. Miles away, in a courthouse basement, Elena Cross sat in handcuffs, her face pale under the harsh light. Her lawyer whispered urgently beside her, but she wasn't listening. Her eyes were locked on the television in the corner, the news broadcast showing Marcus Sterling leaving the courthouse, his arm around Lily's shoulders. The reporter's voice was bright. "Sources confirm that Marcus Sterling has officially adopted Lily Thompson, the young girl who found and protected his missing triplets." The story has moved millions across the nation. Elena's jaw tightened. That little brat, she hissed. She took everything. But for the first time, her words carried no power, no venom. Just the hollow sound of someone who had finally lost everything. That evening, as the sun melted into gold and pink, Lily walked down the same park path where it had all begun. She carried a single daisy in her hand. The fountain still gurgled softly. The oak tree still stood tall, proud, and ancient. She knelt at its roots, pressing the flower gently into the soil. Thank you, she whispered. To fate, to the universe, to the memory of the day that had changed her life. Behind her, Marcus approached quietly, holding Joshua against his shoulder. Do you know what I think? He asked softly. Lily looked up at him, smiling. What? I think your mama would be proud of you, he said. Lily's eyes shimmered. Do you really think so? Marcus nodded. You gave my sons their life back, and you gave me mine. The breeze carried her quiet laugh as the first stars blinked to life overhead. She looked at the babies, at Marcus, at the world around her, the world she finally belonged to, and whispered, We're going to be okay. I promise. The wind rustled the daisies. The fountain glimmered beneath the moonlight, and the scene faded like a dream into the night. The poor flower girl who once sold wilted blooms now holding the most precious treasures in the world. The end.